Hello there. I'm glad to be back. Welcome back to another live. It's Wednesday again. The weeks are just flying by. It is you can say the peak of summer, and I hope that you're all having the most wonderful time, enjoying some well-deserved quality time with your kids, long days at the beach. And have your kids got their exam results? To all the moms who have older kids, my son just got his yesterday. And we're very pleased with his results. He's done quite well for himself, even though, he's 13 and he might have, I would have suggested maybe that he spend some more time studying, but with 13-year-olds, well, it's a bit different when they're younger. I remember myself being 13 and we're just happy that he got great results. So big well done to Yannick from here. He's at his swimming lesson right now, with Nina too. I can see a couple of faces popping up. I'm just going to go into the topic for today, which is freezing using freezer bags. This is a question I get asked a lot. I get a lot of questions about freezing and mostly about how I freeze. And this has changed over the years because, of course, you pick up a few tips and tricks, actually. I turned that around. And you always get better and basically improve your skills. My name is Nakita. I run the Mama Manual blog and social media pages, and I simply love empowering busy mamas like yourself to take control of their time so that they can live and design the life that they would truly love to live. And of course, leave some time for self-care, which is super important. I remind you every single week about that. So I'd like to get a hello from everyone. Hi guys, just say hello to make sure that you're here and you're watching and that you can see me. Because after the mishap that we had 2 weeks ago with Facebook and Instagram, they were down and I was chatting to practically no one. It would be nice to get some emojis, some smiles and some hellos. How are you all doing? I also want to ask you, the question for today is, do you freeze first of all? And what do you freeze? Do you just buy specific ingredients or ready-made foods and pop them in the freezer? Or do you actually batch cook and just freeze a few meals here and there? I would like to know that. And also, for those of you that do freeze homemade meals, what do you use to freeze? So what type of containers are you using? Do you use containers? Do you use freezer bags? Do you just wrap in plastic wrap? Let me know right here in the comments box. Whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the recording, just leave your comments and I'll get back to you later. So when I started freezing, and this was about 10 years ago, I would say, first we started off. The first thing that we froze actually was wraps. So we didn't put those into containers. The first time around, we tried freezing them in plastic bags. Yes, it was plastic bags. And what happened is that they got very soggy, so the second time around we decided to go for parchment paper, which worked out terrifically well. But then when we started batch cooking, we started freezing using actual containers. And it was easy to do, of course, but there were a couple of negatives about that. And when we switched to freezer bags, or let's say mostly freezer bags, because then there are some foods for which we prefer to use plastic containers. That's not much, however. We decided that bags was a much better option for a multitude of reasons, which I will go into just now. But before I do that, I can see a lot of faces over here, so I'm just going to say hello to a couple of people. And Anne-Marie, hello to you. Anne-Marie says that she freezes homemade meals, sauces and vegetable soups. Super. Hi Chantel and Audrey. Audrey, perfect. And Audrey says that she's following me while she's having some self-care time. Just what I always say you should do. Hi Doreen. Hi Anne-Marie. Hello Maronia, Claudia, Amanda. My mom is watching as well. Hello mom. And okay, let's continue. So the topic for today, if you've just joined us right now, because I can see the number growing very quickly, is how to freeze using freezer bags and why you should use freezer bags and not any other types of containers. So I am going to tell you the exact way that I use these bags to use them to my advantage. My name is Nakita, I run the Mama Manual blog and social media pages, and I simply love empowering moms to take control of their time and live a better life. And don't forget to leave some time for self-care. So, freezer bags. There are a lot of advantages to using freezer bags, and let me just mention a few of them. First of all, they are widely available. They're cheap considering that you can reuse freezer bags, and yes, please do reuse freezer bags as much as you possibly can. Let's not throw away all that plastic for nothing. And besides that, they are great because they have durable seals, so you can expel the air completely, and the food will last for longer because it will not get freezer burn. And I'll go into that as well into further detail later on. They're also great because you can write on them as well. And of course, since I reuse them, my freezer bags often have, for example, chili con carne written and then crossed off, and then it's chicken drumsticks, and then it's something else. But you can write on them using permanent markers, so it's very easy. You do not need anything else. And the two reasons why I love them the most is because, first of all, the food can freeze very quickly inside of them, because imagine having, for example, soup in a large container. Of course, there's more like volume, so to speak, because obviously if you have a container you cannot flatten it out, so it will take longer to freeze. And the second reason, and the prime reason why I love freezer bags so much, is because they take up practically no space at all. So you've got the food and it's just trapped in this thin freezer bag, and you can stack them on top of each other. And I don't know if you've read the last blog post that I published last Friday. It was about freezing, batch cooking and freezing basically, and I did mention this. Have you read the blog post? Let me know. If you haven't, I mentioned in there that a while ago I took a photo of my small freezer, which is like the standard one that everyone gets with his fridge, so it's just three drawers. And I took a photo of the bottom drawer, and I asked like the people who were following me to guess how many meals were inside the drawer. And I think I had about 50 or 60 replies, and only 2 guessed. So if you haven't read it, now don't cheat. If you haven't read it or seen the post, try and imagine one drawer. It's a standard fridge drawer, freezer drawer, the one that is below the fridge. How many meals would you think fit inside of the drawer inside freezer bags? I'll check the answers later. So you're going to be surprised. So I'll probably get some really ambitious numbers over here. So you can put anything in freezer bags. You can freeze marinades, you can freeze soups, you can freeze sauces, you can freeze, I love freezing ribs, that's not for freezing. This is why I love freezer bags as well. Besides freezing, when I marinate meats, and like for example spare ribs, which I do love making, you can make the marinade. And then you can pop it into the bag, you put the meat into the bag, close it up, and then just rub it inside the bag itself. And that really ensures that all of the marinade is nicely coating the meat that you have inside of the bag. So try it out if you like marinades, because freezer bags do work out really well for marinades. So before I get into how I use freezer bags, because there is a little bit of a sequence and a how-to, believe it or not, I'm just going to see if we have any more hellos. So I can see Stephanie watching and Annabelle. And Claudia says, I freeze meals such as pasta, ready for work, and vegetables. Yes, pasta, especially baked pasta dishes, do very well in the freezer. For example, lasagna or baked macaroni. And what you can also do is you can freeze a part of the pasta. For example, you can freeze the sauce. And then all you need to do is take the freezer bag out of the freezer, or your freezer container out of the freezer the night before, pop it into the fridge, let it defrost, and all you need to do is boil the pasta and mix everything together, and you've got yourself a very quick dinner. And yes, you can freeze vegetables, as Claudia says as well. Brilliant. And Alexandra is watching, so hello Alexandra. And Nolene says, I have a small freezer, so I barely keep frozen food. So Nolene, if you haven't read my last blog post, I'm going to repeat. Just go into www.themamamanual.com and see the last blog post, because I talk about how you can actually batch cook and freeze and use a small freezer. Because 10 years ago, when we started freezing food, we had a small freezer, and regardless of the fact that it was small, we still managed to do it. So there's a couple of tips that you can pick up, and using freezer bags is one of them, because they take up the least space. And Annabelle also says, I do freeze a lot as well. And when I make sauces and soups, I always cook double to freeze for next time. Yes, it's quite easy to double recipes. It doesn't take double the time to batch cook. So yes, Annabelle, I agree completely. And of course, if you can make even more than double, that's even better. Of course, it depends on the size of your family and the pot that you're using to cook in. I like using my 6-liter slow cooker because I can triple or quadruple recipes as well, and so that works lovely. Hi, Ruth. And hi, Susan. Hello, Antoinette. Okay. So, I haven't got any answers to how many freezer bag meals fit into one drawer. So I'm just going to tell you the answer myself. I can very easily, and I'll find the picture inside of my Instagram stories and I'll share it with you, fit 10 meals inside one drawer. Yes, that's right, 10 meals. So if you have a small freezer, and I believe it was Jolene who said so, you can use just one drawer for these meals so that you have 10 meals, and then the other 2 drawers you can use to freeze whatever foodstuffs you need to keep in there, which you use on a regular basis. But having 10 meals inside of your freezer is already a huge help because that's practically 2 weeks worth of meals. So every time you cook, you can at least cook double, and you can take a couple of days off and not cook at all, which will free up a lot of time. So let's get into the hows of using freezer bags. So first of all, of course, you need to cook your recipe. So we're batching, which is what we like doing, right? So we can save more time. And you cook your recipe, and then after it's ready, you'll let it cool for some time, and then you'll pop the recipe into the fridge to cool down completely. Now, once it's cooled down, you can take your freezer bag, choose the correct size because there are a variety of sizes available as well, and you can label them. Don't make the mistake that I do sometimes, so label the freezer bag before you fill it up with the food because it is much easier. So have a look at what you've cooked, take your freezer bags, write down what you've cooked, the date maybe, and any notes that you need. For example, if I've cooked something, a pasta sauce, let's say, and I want to add cream at the end after it's defrosted before when I'm heating it up, basically. So I'll just write, for example, I don't know, bolognese pasta, for example, 6/6/19, for example, for the date, and then a small note like add 200 ml cream, for example. So because chances are that you'll forget when you take it out of the freezer, and always label because food changes so much inside of the bag when it's frozen that a lot of times when I used to be a little bit lazier before and I hadn't quite gotten into the routine of freezing, I used to just freeze as is and say, oh yes, I remember what I have. And what do you think could happen? I'd open up my freezer and I wouldn't know what was in it. So I would recommend that you always label. So you've chosen the size, you've labeled it, and your food is now cool. So you can fill up your freezer bag. Now, if you are going to fill it up with something which is very liquidy, you can place your freezer bag over a bowl or over a glass or something which is a bit deep. A bowl makes more sense because a glass is quite small, obviously. And just fill it up. And after you've filled it up, you need to expel the air. So find some way to lay it flat. Of course, you need to be careful if you've got liquid inside. And expel the air, close it up, make sure it's closed, just tip it over slightly to make sure that no liquid comes out. And you're going to lay it out flat. First of all, you're testing that it's really sealed. Secondly, it's the way to expel the air, it's the way to go. And besides that, this is the way you should be freezing. So you should be freezing flat inside your freezer because it's taking up less space. Now, just one thing. When you're freezing and you have let's say I have, for example, 4 bags because I do quadruple my recipes sometimes, don't stack all of the flat freezer bags on top of each other inside of the freezer. Why? Because it will take so much longer for the freezer bags to freeze, for the food to freeze. So you have a few options. If you have more than one freezer, you can place the bags in different drawers. For example, I like, for example, to put one in each drawer and, for example, another one in my chest freezer. Or if you don't have a big freezer, what you can do is, or multiple freezers, you can place the bags inside the fridge. Put one bag or how many ever bags fit inside your drawer, and as soon as that is frozen, you can then stack another one on top of it. So in that way, the freezing process is much faster and you're saving energy as well. Now, be careful. When you're placing freezer bags on top of each other, or you're moving them around, for example, because you need to stack them very nicely to make sure that everything fits in. Be very careful, because if you put a lot of pressure on the bags, they'll start rubbing against each other, and what will happen is, and I've learned this the hard way, you'll get more piercings into the bags, and then what happens? You'll defrost the bags and all of your liquid starts coming out of the bags. So, tip number 1, don't rub the bags together, try not to push them down, and be careful when stacking the bags inside the freezer. Tip number 2, when you're defrosting the food inside of the freezer bags, I suggest that you do that inside a dish. So take a dish, put the bag inside the dish. Most of the time I need to lay it up vertically inside the dish and then put it inside your fridge and let it defrost. In that way, if liquid escapes from the bags, you can just take the dish when you're heating up the food and just topple it over and put the liquid back inside of the food that you're heating up, basically. So, after you're done with the freezer bags, you should wash them very well and you can then reuse them, unless, of course, you've reused them tens of times and the liquid is just gushing out when you're using them, which at that point, you should throw it away, or else sometimes I reuse it for something else which is not freezing, because I'm gonna jump off the topic for a while now. Freezer bags are handy for the most amazing things and they can be used for so much stuff. For example, I pack little snacks inside of them. I use them to transport, for example, cereal from our house to my in-laws' house or to my parents' house when Nina's sleeping over. Don't laugh, I've used them to pack clothes in as well. Last weekend we were off topic completely now. Yes, I've gone off on a tangent, but last weekend we were on our friend's boat for the full weekend. And it was our first time spending a weekend on a boat, so we weren't quite sure if it was going to be cold in the evening, how many t-shirts we needed, how many shorts. So what I did was, I took our clothes, and for each person I used one medium-sized, say, freezer bag, and I folded the clothes using the KonMari method, which I've mentioned in my live where I speak about organizing the wardrobe. I'll link it right here as well so that you can have a look at it as well. And then I just placed them neatly inside the bag, expelled the air and just closed it up, and they worked wonders. So you can recycle the bags even when they're a little worse for wear maybe, and use them for something else as well. Now I have a couple more questions, and mostly it's about what type of freezer bags I use and where I buy them from. So the best kind of freezer bags are the ones with the zip lock. So they've just got a zip. You expel the air and then you just close it and it's sealed. Or else there are the ones that when you push the two, what I can do is I'm going to do something different to the normal. I'm just going to move over and I'm going to show you a few freezer bags from my cupboard. So just a minute. Being more interactive today. Okay, so that's one. And that's another. And I have another type as well. You'll just give me a second. Okay, so I have 3 types of freezer bags to show you. Now, this is the type which I use the least, but I keep them in hand just in case I need a backup. So, these freezer bags I bought from Lidl. They don't have a zip at the top, but what they do have, and Nina took them for me because she's been playing with them, but they're in here somewhere. They have these like little plastic, they're not quite plastic, they've got like what we call frigidaire Maltese. I can't quite remember the word in English, but they've got these little it's like a small fastening which you twist around so you can close it. So they're not quite as good as the ones with the ziplock, but they do the job. And they're slightly thicker than a standard plastic bag. So I wouldn't use a normal plastic bag because it will get pierced very easily, basically. So that's the first type. This is from Lidl. And then, this is also from Lidl as well. I don't think that they have them all the time. This is the Ziploc type. So you've got the zip on top, as you can see. Okay? And you close that up. And you can write as well on top. And then there are these types. These are from IKEA, as you can see. So I think this is the second largest. And all you do is you fill it up. And when you lie it flat and expel the air, you close it up just like that. But I believe that most supermarkets do stock freezer bags, so have a look at the supermarket that you shop at usually and give it a shot. So we have some more comments as well. And Struggling Mom says, for those who have a deep freeze, the best is to place a container and file the freezer meals instead of stacking on top of each other. Interesting. I've never tried it myself. I still use the same method and it works a treat, but this might work better. That said, my deep freezer is not the huge one, so I'm still kind of trying to save space because it's a medium-sized one. So I don't know if there are any more questions about freezing, but I've pretty much gone through the whole process from start to finish. And before I go, I'm going to share my awesome new free resource with you. And this I've created because I had asked on Instagram, I had chosen 3 types, I had listed 3 types of resources, and I had asked you moms what you would prefer me to create for you. And I had well over 100, I can't remember how many, but I think it was close to 200 of you who voted for this particular resource. Now, how many of you meal plan? So the number one problem with meal planning is that when we sit down to meal plan, we have no idea what to cook. So even though we've got all this inspiration running around most of the time, and when we're watching TV and we're maybe on Pinterest or we're speaking to our friends, when we sit down to meal plan, it's all gone. So I have created a resource, which is a file with a list of 100 simple recipes, which you can access. They've been handpicked, each and every one. I have handpicked myself, and they are all ultra quick to cook or batch cooking and freezer friendly. They're simple to follow. The ingredients are easy to source, and there isn't a huge number of ingredients either, because who wants that? And besides that, they're also delicious, reasonably healthy, they're varied, and they are fun. So if you want to get my list of 100 simple recipes, which will save you so much headache, you need this. You need this because when you sit down to meal plan, you will open up this resource and you'll get it done in 10 minutes flat. So to access my free download, you need to go to www.themamamanual.com/100recipes. That's 100 in digits. So it's www.themamamanual.com/100recipes. So that's it for today, mamas. I hope you enjoyed this live. I can't wait to see you again next week on the Wednesday again at 4:30. Goodbye for now. Take care.